Page 54, continuation of 10. Notes. Cyclops. They are a race of one-eyed monsters who were smiths under Vulcan, the blacksmith of the gods. He had his workshop under Mount Etna in Sicily. One can hear their hammers when the volcano is in eruption. Sorrow. Sorrow is personified as a torturer. 11. The mightiest kings have had their minions, great Socrates, wild Alcibiades. Act 1, Scene 4. Isabella pleads for the recall of Gaveston to the barons for her sake. Younger Mortimer supports the plea, quote, not for his sake, but for our avail, unquote. The barons agree to the repeal of Gaveston. The Queen is glad that, quote, now is the King of England rich and strong, having the love of his renowned peers, unquote. The king proposes to hold festivities and tournaments in honor of Gaveston as soon as he returns. When all depart, the elder Mortimer and the younger Mortimer are left alone. The former is left in charge of the army, which is now ready to attack the Scots. He tells his nephew to consider the mild and calm nature of the king. He asks him not to harbour any ill feeling against the king and to allow him to dote on Gaveston. He says in support of his petition that the mighty kings and their favourites, Alexander, the great conqueror, loved Helpaston. Hercules mourned the loss of Hylas. Achilles, the commander-in-chief of the Greek army in the Trojan War, loved his friend Patroclus. Even the wisest men of the world had their favourites. Roman orator and politician Cicero was fond of Octavius, and Socrates loved wayward Alcibiades. Thus, the elder Mortimer shows from the Greek and Roman legends that kings and wise men had their favourites. So Edward's infatuation for Gaveston should not be regarded as a great offence on his part, and should not be looked upon as a sufficient reason for urging opposition against him. Notes. Alexander, the king of Macedon, Macedon, in Greece, was a great warrior and emperor. His invasion of India is well known. He had his favourite named Helpastion, Helpaeastion. Hercules Hylas. Hylas, Hylas, was a beautiful youth. Hercules was a great warrior and was known for his strength and courage. Hercules killed the father of Hylas and took him as his favourite. Hylas accompanied Hercules in the Argonautic expedition for the Golden Fleece. G capital Olden, F capital Lweece. He was carried off by the water nymphs when he was drawing water from a well on the shore of Mysia, Mysia. Hercules wept for the loss of Hylas. Patroclus Achilles. Achilles, Achilles, was the commander-in-chief of the Greek army in the Trojan War, and Patroclus, Patroclus, was his friend. Patroclus was slain by Hector, Hector. Achilles, who had retired to his camp, was, in quote, in wrath, Wrath, unquote, When he came to hear the death of his friend, he went back to fight the Trojans. Tully, Tullly, Marcus Tullius Cicero, Roman orator and politician. Socrates, Socrates, the great Greek philosopher. Grave Socrates has reference to the philosophic wisdom of Socrates. Alcibiades, Alcibiades, a youth and warrior of Athens. He was appointed the general of Athenian army in the Sicilian expedition. He was a profligate, and Sicilian expedition failed because of his incompetence. He was a disciple of Socrates, who was known as a corrupter of youths. 12. But this I scorn, that one so basely born, as if that Proteus, god of shapes, appeared. Act 1, Scene 4. The king and the barons are reconciled with one another on the latter's agreement to the recall of Gaveston. The elder Mortimer is made the general of the army fighting in Scotland. Page 55. On the eve of his departure, he tenders to his hot-headed nephew some sober advice. He asks him not to harbour any ill feeling against the king for his dalliance with Gaveston on his return, because the king is after all mild and calm in nature. Moreover, all mighty kings and wise men had their favourites. In reply, the younger Mortimer says that the king's infatuation for Gaveston does not grieve him, but his complaint is against Gaveston, who is the son of a common Gascon soldier. Gascon, Gascon. But he has grown insolent and arrogant because of the favour of the king. He is extravagant for the indulgence of the king, and wastes the treasures of the realm in reckless abandon. The soldiers refuse to fight because they are not given their poor pay. But Gaveston wastes money in extravagance in dress. He is richly dressed and decked with jewels. His dress and decorations cast the entire income of a feudal lord. His dress and decorations waste the entire income of a feudal lord. He covers himself with gold like Midas, the king of Phrygia, Phrygia, and struts ostentatiously before the English nobles and his troop of French scoundrels whose dress makes a proud display. They present such a variety of gorgeous dresses that it seems as if the sea god Proteus, who can change shapes at will, has appeared in the court. Mortimer declares that he has never seen such a fashionably dressed upstart as Gaveston. Mortimer here gives the reasons of his annoyance with the king, whose favour and patronage have made Gaveston, quote, one so basely born, unquote, pert and ostentatious. He wastes the treasures of the realm in dress and laughs at the barons. He cannot brook the ostentation and bravado of the upstart Gaveston. There is the classical allusion in Midas-like, which is so characteristic of Marlowe's style. There is also in this passage a satiric reference to foreign dress, particularly Italian and French, which the Elizabethan youths were fond of. Charlton writes that, quote, during Elizabeth's reign, there was a marked increase in extravagance in dress, unquote. Notes. So basely born. Gaveston is the son of a common Gascon soldier. Riot. Live wantonly. Lord's revenue. Entire income of a feudal lord. Midas-like. Midas, king of Phrygia, got from Bacchus, Bacchus, the blessing that he would be able to turn everything he touched into gold. Thus he covered himself with gold. Jets it, struts, all in gold. Cullions, scoundrels. Proteus, sea god, who can change his shape at will. Dapper, fashionably dressed. Jack, sarcastic hint that the man is an upstart. 13. While soldiers mutiny for want of pay, I have not seen a 13. While soldiers mutiny for want of pay, I have not seen a dapper Jack so brisk. Act 1, Scene 4. Same as explanation 12. 14. And Midas-like, he jets it in the court, as if that Proteus, god of shapes, appeared. Act 1, Scene 4. Same as explanation 12. 15. But seeing you are so desirous, thus it is, a lofty cedar tree, fair flourishing, on whose top branches kingly eagles perch, and by the bark a canker creeps me up, and gets into the highest bough of all, the motto, Acqui tandem. Act 2, Scene 2. Page 56. Edward and his barons patch up a temporary reconciliation on the question of Gaveston's recall. They, along with the Queen, come to Teignmouth Castle and eagerly wait for Gaveston's return from Ireland. The king has already proposed to hold tournaments in honour of Gaveston's return. In his joy and excitement for Gaveston's return, he asks Mortimer Jr. what the painting on his shield will be, and what will be the motto on his shield when he takes part in the tournament fight against other barons. The younger Mortimer is at first reluctant to describe his device, but at last gives an account of it at the insistent requests of the king. He says that the painting on his shield will be a lofty cedar tree, growing mighty and strong. On the top branches of this tree will sit the eagles, and at the trunk of the tree there will be a worm slowly climbing up to the top, and at last getting to the highest top of the mighty cedar. The motto will be, quote, justly at length, unquote. Mortimer's device is symbolical. Cedar tree is the symbol of flourishing royalty of the king. Eagles stand for the mighty nobles. Canker, Canker, means Gaveston, who is as vile as a worm. This canker makes himself as great and powerful in the state as Edward himself by the indulgence of the king. His motto signifies that Gaveston the canker will get justice at the end and be killed. 16. My lord, mine's more obscure than Mortimer's. Pliny reports there is a flying fish. Ellipsis. The motto this: Undique mors est. Undique mors mors est. Act 2, Scene 2. Edward asks the Lord of Lancaster to declare his device that he will adopt in the tournament that will be held on the occasion of Gaveston's return from Ireland. Lancaster says that his device will be more obscure than Mortimer's device. His device will be after Pliny, who speaks of a flying fish which other fishes hate bitterly. It is pursued by others and it gets into the air, but there is a fool who seizes it. His motto will be, quote, on all sides, death, unquote. Lancaster means that however much Gaveston may be elevated by royal favour, the earls and barons will pursue him and get hold of him. Notes: Pliny, Pliny, a learned Roman of Greek origin of the 1st century AD, who wrote his famous Natural History. That's the name of the book. The characteristics of the flying fish as given by Marlowe are taken from Hawkins, Hawkins, rather than from Pliny. Undique mors est, on the sides, death. 17. I am the cedar, shake me not too much, and you the eagles, soar ye ne'er so high. I have the jesses that will pull you down. Ellipsis. 'Tis not the hugest monster of the sea, nor foulest harpy, that shall swallow him. Act 2, Scene 2. Edward is highly incensed at the dark hints contained in the declared devices of Mortimer and Lancaster on their shields in the proposed tournament to be held in honour of Gaveston's return from Ireland. Mortimer has declared that his device on the shield will be a cedar tree, with eagles on the top branches and a canker climbing up to the very top. Lancaster's device will be a flying fish pursued and caught by a fowl. The king understands the hints and expresses his anger at this veiled suggestion of the hatred of the barons for Gaveston. He angrily calls their loyalty to him in question. He proudly asserts that he is the mighty cedar to which Mortimer has referred. He asks the nobles who are the eagles not to rise high. He asks the nobles who are the eagles. The king understands the hints and expresses his anger at this veiled suggestion of the hatred of the barons for Gaveston. He angrily calls their loyalty to him in question. He proudly asserts that he is the mighty cedar to which Mortimer has referred. He asks the nobles, who are the eagles, not to rise high because he has the authority to pull them down as hawks are pulled down by the straps bound to their legs. Page 57. The motto of Mortimer, the king says, applies to the barons themselves. He will bestow such honours and wealth and favours on Gaveston that this canker will become as high and mighty as the most powerful baron of England. The king then refers to the device of Lancaster. The flying fish will not be swallowed either by the hugest monster of the sea or by the most voracious harpy. The speech shows the king's bitter anger for the barons who harbour bitter hatred for Gaveston. On the question of Gaveston, they are never to be reconciled, so their reconciliation is only temporary. The dark hints dropped by Mortimer and Lancaster in their declaration of devices on their shields testify to their hatred of Gaveston. These incense the king, who threatens the barons with dire consequences. The king for his mad infatuation for Gaveston, and the barons for their rooted hostility, are driving themselves to a crisis. Notes: Jesses that will pull you down. Here Marlowe refers to a favourite pastime of the young men of his time. The hawks were kept in control by fetters, fetters, or jesses, jesses, tied to their legs by which they could be pulled down. Foulest harpy. Harpies in classical myths were huge voracious birds Harpies in classical myths were huge voracious birds who delighted in snatching away food from the hungry. 18. For as lovers of fair Danae, when she was locked up in a brazen tower, desired her more, and waxed outrageous, so did it sure with me. And now thy sight is sweeter far than was thy parting hence, bitter and irksome to my sobbing heart. Act 2, Scene 2.